and we're here with Jen Story. Thank you.
Hi,
for
Simon.
Absolute pleasure. A bit of a chilly Friday afternoon, but managed to get some time together. For the uninitiated, the people who don't know you, can you do just a really quick 1 minute? Who are you? What you do?
I have been working in digital for my entire career. My areas of specialty are around strategy and product and innovation, and have been doing that with large enterprises for, I won't say how many years because I give the game away, and also now do a lot of advisory work in that area with large enterprises and some mid-size tier 1, tier 2s, large private companies, and I'm on the board of 2 organisations, one going through a large digital transformation and the other is a SaaS scale-up out of Canada. So keeps me busy.
Yeah, beautiful. So eminently qualified to comment on the stuff that we're going to talk about today, and we're just going to do a bit of a quick deep dive into the piece that came out late last week on the ABC site by Annabelle Crabb. The piece that was that I think the headline from memory was "Female CEOs Boost Companies Revenue by $80 million on average." And it was a bit of a dig into some research that WGEA had done for, I think, sort of like 6 years, had 11,000 companies contribute. And it had some data there that sort of showed that having more females within leadership groups, within boards, hence what we're talking, but at CEO level as well, there was definite difference in the way those businesses performed, and I just thought that was an interesting conversation. So I was sort of interested from your perspective, high level, what were your thoughts on that piece?
I thought it was some really interesting research, and it is an Australian first. And as you said, the sample size is quite impressive, 11,000 Australian businesses, and so that was, probably a world first from that perspective. The volume of companies that have been surveyed or actually given data for this.
Yeah.
And as always with Annabelle Crabb, brilliantly written and some nice little extra bits in there. And it's something that she, as a journalist and an author, has been following, not just from the female perspective, but just gender and diversity as a whole. It's been, she had a book, The Wife Drought, in 2015, which is a cracking read. And last year she also did the quarterly essay around men at work. And that is looking at very specifically about parental leave and why it is not equal. Men don't have access to the parental leave that women do, even though it took a long time for women to get it. Now men don't have it. So it's a cracking essay as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's an interesting subject in itself, because I think there's, certainly some of the more progressive, if you want to call them that, progressive businesses, particularly in the tech space, that, probably born out of San Fran, Silicon Valley, but we're now seeing some of that over here, are offering parental leave equal amounts to both parents. I think we're starting to see that happen. It's still the exception rather than the norm, which I think we'd all like it to be at. But that's a really interesting thing, isn't it? With equality, I think there's this consistent narrative that that everything needs to be equal, so that women's rights are the same as men's. But there's this that sort of throws this different sort of perspective on it. We should all be equal. But it's just interesting.
And that's right. And even on that parental leave thing, and the quarterly essay, without giving away the ending, because I think everyone, it was last September, so it's very current. It finishes with, and I think it's the chief digital officer at Medibank, and he was having, I think, his 4th child, and wanted to take parental leave. And there are restrictions in Australia for a lot of companies. If one parent is taking it, the other one can't take it at the same time.
Right.
Which doesn't make a lot of sense. If you have got, this is your 4th kid, you need help with the other 3 as well. And he was able to take that, and she has interviewed him quite extensively. So even in what we would possibly consider some of our larger brands in the more traditional companies, it might be the tech area or the digital area, the innovation areas, where this change might be starting to come from, because it is stuff that we see in the organisations that some of us work in or come from. So that could be a catalyst for bigger change.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. And I think now we're starting to see more and more tech companies in Australia sort of starting to hit size and volume of employment basis. So we're talking at the Atlassians, the Airwallexes,
absolutely, yeah.
Begins with an A, that are sort of hitting these unicorn statuses, and we spoke to Alan Sen last week about that. But as those businesses grow in stature and employment base, their ability to attract people in that space is going to be largely impacted by the benefits that they offer and what they're like as an employer. And these contemporary things like parental leave, certainly one of those. So it's not only is it kind of the right thing to do, but it certainly helps from a hiring, from an attraction perspective. And I hope that businesses outside of tech will start picking that up and recognizing that these are things they should be doing.
I think it will. I think it always starts somewhere, and we're starting to see that change happen. It's just never happens as quickly as most of us would like.
Yeah. What was interesting to me out of that piece that Annabelle wrote was that the reporting on gender split was mandatory.
It's mandatory for organisations who have 100 employees, and if employee base falls below 100, you still have to report until you get below 80. So you still they're reasonable size organisations.
Yeah. And then that was interesting to me as well. I mean, what other things? The thing that sprang to mind was, what other things could businesses be reporting on that, when that data all comes together, are actually really good learnings for all of us? That was kind of interesting to me. What do you think?
I think there's lots of things that, whether it's mandatory or not, is I guess neither here nor there. But I think it would be very interesting to know age of employees, because there's a lot of data around people over the age of, I think, 50, 55. In some industries, they've just got no chance of getting a job ever again. Yet they have this wealth of knowledge and experience that just isn't being used. And then even, I suppose, potentially language spoken other than English in Australia. In Australia, most people only speak one language, but in a lot of households it's not. And those things are all indicative of diversity of experience and diversity of thought. And I think that is kind of what is at the heart of a lot of even this research. Everyone has their own perspective and their own experience, and ensuring that you're exposed to all that as a business, because it's most likely your customer base as well. You're capturing things. You've got more things to think about. It's saying the things that you've never experienced before. And we all have those moments when someone tells you something and you go, I haven't lived that. I haven't thought of that. That's really interesting. Let's unpick that and see where that goes. From a strategic perspective, that's a lot of the work that I do.
Yeah, beautiful. And I think, again, that's also to a degree sort of ties into the new way of building things that digital allows and enables businesses to do. Even simple things like watching, a UX researcher, for example, sit and watching a user sit and use a product and understanding why they do things and learning from them. Oh, damn, we didn't realize that people did that, or we thought the X to close that screen was really visible, but there's 9 people out of 10 who couldn't find it. So this is
why haven't they clicked on the big red button? And it's like, well, because I didn't expect it to be there. Or I always find UX research fascinating when you're looking at the way people hack around the edges to achieve what they're trying to achieve with whatever product or system or service that you've got. And it's like, wow, okay, you've found your own way through this because you're doing something totally different than what we thought you were doing. So yes, I think it's just the continuation of that approach to building businesses and products and services, and diversity is vital, absolutely vital to that. Well, actually, I'm going to go on a bit of a techie thing, and it's really vital when we are now looking into machine learning, because the way that we train algorithms to do things and to recognize things, If we don't have diversity of the people doing the training, what you see is algorithms that behave in the way that the people who created them are. And we've already there's some really interesting stuff out of the States, and there's even some work that I've been doing recently around a particular algorithm that was identifying swimmers in pools, and got to a point where I don't know if we've got enough people in one-piece swimsuits or bikinis or people who don't have white skin, because the algorithm wouldn't detect them. So it's, it's stuff like that, and you go, we need to have a more diverse lot of data to enable this algorithm to work. And there's a lot of interesting things in the States around some of the states that are using sentencing algorithms to determine what sentences should be given to various people who've been charged with various crimes. And the algorithms have been trained by newspapers that were old. So there was some really strange biases creeping in, and people couldn't work it out why. But when you look at the data that was coming in, that's where it came from. So it's incredibly important as we move even into the more really deep technological things to increase the diversity.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that topic, I was reading a piece yesterday about machine learning and within screening, so automated screening for job applications.
Yes.
And there seems to be this thread at the moment where even some of the AI and the ML in screening has bias because it's been taught to have bias, but that can actually get exacerbated the more and more data that goes through it. So that was interesting to me as well. We think we solve one problem, but then are we
creating a different one?
Yeah.
We're trying to solve the problem, but inadvertently replicating things that we may have addressed already in human face-to-face interactions, but we're inadvertently building it into technology.
Yeah, interesting times. So yeah, I think one thing that I was keen off the back of Annabelle's piece and some conversations we've had sort of over the years. Young female professionals starting off their career right now would be coming into a different industry than perhaps the one that you came into only a few short years ago. From with all your years of experience now, what advice would you be giving young female professionals who are starting off their career, regardless of whether they're in tech or not, but from this is the way forward?
I think the best advice is to have a go. Just say yes to opportunities when they come. Whether it works out well or not, either way you will have gained some insight and some experience and some knowledge. It might be that you don't even want to do that ever again. Or you might accidentally find something that you really, really enjoy and can boost your career.
Yeah.
And I think that can be difficult depending on where you are in your life. Back to to the parental leave piece or those sorts of things, it can be just really never underestimate what you're capable of. And I think it's a Bill Gates perspective. If you want something done, ask someone who's busy and you'll get it done. And that often applies to women, and you will just get stuff done, but you can also be overburdened. So while I'm saying run at the opportunities, don't also be afraid of saying no if it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Trust your gut. Trust your gut is basically the best advice I can give. And the only times I've ever regretted anything, any decision I've ever made, or food I've eaten, anything, is because I didn't trust my gut. Because that's when you are probably careering down a path that you will regret later. And it's even for when you employ people, sometimes you employ people and you get I'm just not sure, and then you're usually right. So learn to trust that.
Yeah. Good advice. I think one of the things that we see, particularly with leaders that have achieved success whether male or female. But I think this classic sort of T-shaped, deep experience, sort of deep technical skill but broad experience. I think that's potentially kind of changing a little bit. I think this, particularly in the tech space, sort of this jack of all trades, master of some. Certainly from a digital perspective, having good levels of knowledge depth across multiple things to understand how this sort of fully rounded picture forms of the problems that you're trying to solve. What are your thoughts from, maybe?
Yeah, so there's always been the I-shaped people and the T-shaped people, which I think came out of IDEO. An I-shaped person is probably someone who is just very specifically one thing. That might be, say, they're an accountant, and that's just they love being an accountant. And then they had T-shaped people, which tended to be more, I guess, people like me in terms of in consulting, where you know a lot of stuff, but you might know one really thing really well. And then over time, if you are that T-shaped person, I think you end up being more of an M shape with the line. So you've still got that big breadth of stuff, but there are multiple things that you know really, really well. And people do like to say, well, what is it that you do? And it's like, well, actually, what do you need done? Because I can't really say what it is that I do. I can tell you things that I don't do. But if you explain to me what it is that you're trying to achieve, or what problem you're facing, or what insight you've had, then I can start to work out which bits I can do and which bits I'll get someone else to do, or those sorts of things. So I've got experience in a huge amount of stuff in strategy, in marketing, in product, in e-commerce, and then the actual change elements that you need, managing that change and enabling people to change and enabling people to change their own mindset. So they're the big 5 things that I spend most of my time doing, but that doesn't fit a nice, neat little description. So I guess the thing is, don't, as you're saying, don't be afraid to step outside of that T. Pick up the other stuff. You will find, the more you look, the more you will find things that you go, I didn't even know that existed as a thing. I'm going to go and explore that.
I mean, this curious mindset, how do you do that? How does this get fixed? How does that work? Why does it work that way? What could we do different?
Like if you go on Wikipedia, right, and you're reading something about a movie you've just watched, and then 3 hours later you find yourself reading about something about a rushing submarine because you've just clicked and clicked and clicked. You're like, what the hell am I doing? But that's where your curiosity leads you, and I think you can do that in your career as well.
Quick question: do you pay for Wikipedia?
I do donate when they ask for donations. Yes.
Yeah, we pay.
Despite the inherent, there's bias and a whole bunch of things going on Wikipedia, but that's one of the reasons why you donate, so that it can address those things.
Yeah, we pay a monthly sub to it. I think it's like $4 a month or something like that. Because every time I see it go through zero, I think I was on Wikipedia about 55 times yesterday, so I get my money's worth.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's amazing the things that we take for granted. I think freemium has kind of done that as well, hasn't it?
Yes, as a model, absolutely.
Yeah, beautiful. So just going back to Annabelle's piece then, what do you think the reaction to that would be, to that piece is going to be sort of long term? Do you think this will make businesses try and get more diversity into boards, into leadership groups, more women? Do you think it's going to pave the way for more women to be at C-level and running businesses?
Obviously, I would like to say yes. Will it? I think really only time will play that one out. I would probably never have thought that in 2020 I would be still talking about this. So that's an interesting one. I would like to think that by the time my teenage daughter is working, that she won't have to answer these questions, but I'm pretty sure the generations that came before me would have hoped that for my generation. So it just seems to be an ongoing thing. And you'll appreciate this, there's a classic episode of Yes Minister, which is in 1982. And there's an interview, well, he's talking to an undersecretary who's female, and the minister is talking to her about the numbers and why it's just so appalling. And it's the same, pretty much the same now.
Yeah.
That was a 1982 episode. So, and you could even the fashions, you know, I live in the inner north of Melbourne, the fashions are pretty much the same now. They're 70s and 80s. But the topics are exactly the same. The questions are the same, and almost some of the answers are the same.
Yeah.
So will the research make a difference? I would like to think so, because this is substantial research, and it has been done by the Curtin Business School.
Yeah.
So I think it will make a difference in some organisations.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that are probably already progressing in that way. It's just whether there can be a drag along for the ones that continue to resist.
Yeah. Who knows? We live in Australia.
I don't know. I would like to think it will make a change.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Mindful of the time, we've been sort of gone over a bit over time now, but lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Always a pleasure, never a chore. If people want to get hold of you and ask you any questions, where can they find you?
Probably LinkedIn. Just find me as Jen Story.
With an E. Jen Story.
With an E. Yes.
Yeah. Beautiful. Jen, thank you so much. Absolute pleasure.
Thanks for the opportunity, Simon. Always good.
See ya.
Bye.